Hi guys, this is Tech Howdy. I welcome you to another video tutorial on implementing JWT refresh tokens in your existing application. In the last video tutorial, we finished coding the token controller class. We created all the required methods, and before we go ahead and use them in our front-end code in Angular, we will first test these APIs using Postman. Postman is a free application that can be downloaded from getpostman.com, and we use this application to test our APIs. Now let's go ahead and download this. I have already downloaded Postman and installed it. So it's a application that you can just download and then transfer it into your applications folder. Once you download Postman, you should see an icon like this. Click on Postman. When Postman starts, you will have an interface like this. Close this. First thing that I will do when I'm using Postman is I'll go to settings and I will turn off my SSL certification verification, because this might prevent you from accessing your APIs and you will get an SSL error here on your Postman interface when you call the APIs. So make sure you turn it off when you are testing your APIs. Next thing, let's go back to our application. And before we go ahead and test our application, we would need to make certain changes. So the first change that you would do is go to your startup.cs class, and here inside your startup.cs class, we need to modify the services.identity method, where we have to specify the application user and add the missing reference. That's because we are no longer depending on identity user, because our application user is now extending the identity user class, and we have these additional method properties that we have created that are part of now identity user class. Therefore, in the startup class, we have to change this to application user. Now, the next thing that we want to do is go to our account controller class that we have in our application. So go to controllers, account controllers. And now inside the account controllers, if you look at the properties that we have over here, the user manager, the sign-in manager of type identity user, we have to change this as well to application user. So let's do this. So we make sure that we don't get any errors when we build this project and run this project. And if we call the APIs, if these settings are not changed or these classes are not changed, then we will get an error when we are making the API calls. So make sure where we have identity user, we are using application user, specifically in the register method, because we will still be using the register method. The only method that we are not going to use is the login method. So the login method, we don't actually need it anymore. You can either comment it or you can leave it as it is. It's up to you to take that decision. Next thing you want to do is go ahead and build your application. The build is successful. There was no errors. Now what we want to do is right click on our client application, go to tools and open in terminal. And here we are going to update our Angular app. If we don't perform this step, then we will get an error that certain modules are missing. And if you want to run the application, you need to install that modules that we are using in this application, modules, npm packages. And if you go to your client app, and if you go to your source folder, and you will see some bunch of files over here. But if you don't see your package.json file on angular.json file, that means these files are hidden. It does not mean that these files don't exist. they are hidden. So all you want to do is right click on your main solution or main project, and then you have this option, display options and show all files. Now if you see, you should be able to see the angular.json and package.json file. And you see inside the package.json file, we have bunch of packages that have been used when we develop this base application. If we build the application, the build will show it's successful, but it's not going to install the packages for us. We have to do that by running the npm command. Therefore, we have to open the terminal in our folder, which is client app. And now here we are going to type the following command to update the update command, which will install all these packages that we have. So let's do that. So I'm going to say sudo npm update, ask me for my password, enter my password, hit enter. And now npm will update all the packages that are listed in my package.json file in client app. So it takes about a minute depending on the speed of your internet. Sometimes might take a bit longer, but eventually you will get the result. So we have to patiently wait for it. So as you see that the packages were updated, and we have found 5 packages which have severity and vulnerabilities. And in order to fix that, we have to run npm audit fix command. So let's do that. So the command will be sudo npm audit fix. So as you see, fixed 5 of 5 vulnerabilities, and all the packages that are listed also have been updated. Now the next thing is to go ahead and run our application. If we see any errors, we will see it in our browser. And if we see the errors, we will fix them, we will debug the errors. But for now, everything should be working as it is supposed to work. So let's go ahead and just click on the one option to run our application. So let's go here, hit run. Browser is loading our application. And now the application is running. So guys, please note that if you don't run the npm packages, then the application, that's the angular application, will not load, because it will not build. Unless you have those packages, the application will not build. So make sure you build those applications. Now the next thing that we want to do is go ahead and register a user, because we want to test. And in order to test JWT authentication, we need to have a user. We need to have a username. So for that, we need to register a new user in application. So using the register form, we will register our user. Very important thing to note: open Kitematic and make sure your server is running, because we are going to save some data in our database, and the server should be up and running. So first thing. Second, go ahead and also download Azure Data Studio and run that application. If you should already be having this. And now we will go ahead and connect to our database. So let's hit localhost and put our password and hit connect. Now here we have our database, which is where we are going to save all tokens and all user related details. So first thing, let's go ahead and register a test user. I'll call this user as tech howdy. You can call it whatever you like. Password will be test_1. Confirm password once again will be test_1. We have implemented this functionality in when we created the base project. So please make sure you watch those video tutorials if you want to know how to use them. So techhowdy at gmail.com. We are going to hit submit, and the response was a success because we didn't get any error. and we will go to our database to verify if the user was created. So go to tables, ASP.NET users, right click, edit data, and we should have one user TechAudi being created. Now guys, we would not be able to log in into our application with the user credentials that we just created a user with. So TechAudi and test_1. When I hit submit, I'm going to say that the email is not confirmed because that's how we have implemented this application with. So I'm just going to hit refresh, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Azure Data Studio, and then on this email confirmed, I'm just going to change it to 1, and then all I want to do is hit run. Now this query is executed, the email shows confirmed. I'm going to press use tech howdy again and password test_1, hit submit, and now I should be able to log in because the email is confirmed. So now the application is up and running. We have a valid user, and if I go to the inspect tab, I should be seeing the JWT token because I'm console logging it. Yes. So here, so we have a token as well, and we have the user role as well. But we are not going to use this interface for testing purposes. We are going to use our API. So we'll go to Postman, and we will test our APIs. We are not using the front end as of yet because we have not yet modified the Angular code. So the Angular code does not know that we are using refresh token. All it knows is that we are using JWT tokens. We have to also implement that in the front end code, and we have not done it. So when we try testing it with the front end code, which is the Angular code, we are going to obviously get errors. Therefore, we will just test our APIs. So to test our APIs, first thing we need is our URL, which is at this port 5001. Yours might be different, so please check. Now if I go here to the application, let me just get rid of all these other tabs that I have open so we can keep it simple. And this is the API that we are going to call, which is going to be our auth method. So I'm going to put a breakpoint over here. This is how we are going to test it. So the grant type we are going to set as login. So for now, what we want to do is go and log out this user. I actually don't need him logged in. So I am going to go to Postman API. Here we need to call the API method, which is inside the token controller. So the way we call the API method is by here, by going through API forward slash the controller name. So API forward slash the controller name, which is token forward slash the method name, the action method name, which is auth. So let's do that. The method is of type HTTP post. So change this to post, and also go to the body, and we need to send certain parameters when we are calling this API. So let's set the values of these parameters. So we go to body raw, and we are going to create these parameters. So here I have set the array which contains all the values, like the username key will contain the value techhowdy, which is the username of the user. The password key will contain the password for that user, and the grant type is, when we are making the call to this API, we have to specify if the grant type is a login request or if it's a refresh token request. So whenever it's a login request, we obviously need to pass the password. Therefore, we will say the grant type is password. Now we need to also go to headers and set the content type to application JSON, and then all we want to do is go and click on this send button. There is a problem here when we are making the API call, and I want you to first see the error before we fix it. So let's go ahead and click on the send button, which will make a call here, and this breakpoint should hit. So I'm hitting send, and I am getting a 500 internal server error. Why do you think I am getting this error? So the problem is we have created a token controller class which is dependent on the token model. Now we have not yet injected the token model into the startup class, so this service for token model is not active, and in ASP.NET Core we are using dependency injection. So the services that we are using, we have injected them, whether it be email sender or whether it be application DB context, we have injected this into our startup class so that we can consume it in other classes. Now we have not yet injected the token model. Therefore, it is very important that when the application starts, the first thing it's going to do is in the startup class, it's going to start all the required services. So what we are going to do here is we are also going to add a scope version of the token model. To get more information on why I use add scoped, there's also other method available like add transient, but add scope, just to keep it short, the scoped services are created just one time per request, whereas the add transient services are created for each time, for the lifetime of the services and each time the service runs. So I have used add scoped because this particular service is created once for every request, so once per request. So I've used the scope version of this. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and I am going to run this application. Now we should have the token model service which is required in order to make the API calls to that controller is up and running. So now if I go to Postman and now if I hit send, you see the breakpoint hits because the service is up and running and I could make the call. Now if I look at the model and if I open the model, you will see that the request that came in with the values has been binded to token request model, and with the properties we received, we have created it, converted it into a token request model, and the properties are automatically assigned. So the grant type is password, the password is test_1, refresh token currently is null because the grant type is password, and the username is techhowdy. So now let's go step by step here and see what exactly is happening. I'll set a breakpoint over here for case 1 and for case 2. Okay, so we'll go next. If the model is equal to null, which means our model is not null, it has values, so it goes to the switch statement. The grant type is password, so it's going to match the case. If it's password, it's going to call the generate new token method. So we'll set a breakpoint over here so it doesn't skip. So let's hit next, generate new token model, and here it's calling the generate new token request model. You can go ahead step by step, review each step. Finally, what we are going to receive when I press this run button, I should see the response sent to my Postman API, and then I have received a refresh token. I have received a JWT token as well. So that means our API is working fine and we can use it or consume it in our Angular application. Now we also want to test the refresh token method. So let's add one more tab here. And here I am going to add this once again, post. And here I'm going to copy some values, go to body, raw, paste this over here, and we cannot set this to password. We have to set this to refresh token. So the grant type will be refresh token, and what values that we need to send. We also need to send the old refresh token because we are going to create a new refresh token. So let's add those values. So I have set the required values when we make the call to generate a refresh token, that means a new JWT token. But before I hit the send button, I just want to go to Azure Data Studio and check inside the tokens table that if the refresh token was created when we logged in into the application using Postman. So we should find the same refresh token inside our database because we are saving it. So if I go to Azure Data Studio and now I go to edit data, and there I see the token is the same as I see it in my Postman API, which is D4778AA, and it matches the value here. Also the client ID matches. So note that we have not sent this client ID to the user or the client in front end. All we have going to send is the value of the refresh token. All these values remain in our database, and now when the refresh token is going to be requested again, we are going to verify all these values from our database. So let's go back to Postman, go back here, and I have just copied this refresh token value from here and pasted it over here. Now also go to headers and set the content type to application JSON. Go back body, and now let's hit send. Once again, we have a breakpoint set over here. We have received a request. Go and check the model. The grant type is refresh token, and we have the password specified over here, but it doesn't matter because the password is not going to be used in this case. So even if I had removed the password value and set it to null, or even not supplied it, we are not going to use it, because once the grant type is refresh underscore token, we can just hit next, and you see the switch statement just goes to refresh underscore token, and we know that now this refresh token model method will be called to pass the model in here. So I'm going to hit next and hit next. I've set a breakpoint over here, and you see we have received these values over here inside the method, and now we are going to check if the refresh token that we received inside this model, this refresh token exists in our database. We will also check when we issued this old refresh token, we have set a client ID. That client ID in our database, this client ID in our database matches the client ID in the app settings.client ID or app settings.json file here. It should match. If it matches, that means the token that is in database and the token that we are receiving as in our request was issued by our application, and the user is genuine and it's a valid request. So what we are going to do is hit next, next, next. So we will hover over RT and see what values we received. So we received the client ID is the same, the created date is the expired time, so it matches. So therefore we don't have to worry, the request is valid. Now I'm just going to hit the run button. You can still go step by step and validate each requests or each steps and check if the value is correct. But as you know, the final response that is received is the auth token, which we are sending over here, an array called as auth token, which will contain the response, and If you see, it's the auth token. It contains the token, the expiration time, the refresh token, the role, and the username. So now this token is valid, and now we can use it in our component to view our components in Angular application. So now we have successfully tested all the required APIs. It's working fine. Starting from the next video tutorial, we will modify the Angular code and we will use these refresh token functionality that we created in our front-end application. So for now, this is the end of the video tutorial. The code for this video tutorial will be available in DevOps repos. If you have any question, use the comment section. And finally, please like the video and subscribe my channel Tech Howdy. Thank you.